This episode of the Backcountry podcast is made possible thanks to the support of 10 Barrel Brewing. 10 Barrel Brewing is all about drinking beer outside and stoking passion for the outdoors by contributing a portion of their proceeds from beer sales to nonprofit organizations. Purchase Profuse Juice IPA and you're supporting Surfrider Foundation. If your preference is Hazy Trail IPA, sip confidently knowing you're helping the Outdoor Alliance. The winter seasonal Pray for Snow has proudly supported Protect Our Winters for the last 4 years, and a portion of proceeds from 10 Barrel's new beer, Nature Calls, a mountain-style IPA, proudly goes to the Conservation Alliance. With 10 Barrel Brewing, enjoy your craft beer outdoors even more, knowing that every can you crack open is doing good for the outdoor spaces we all love.
My dad always had the camera everywhere, whether it was at my baseball games or I'm hanging out in the front yard with my friends. There was always this camera in my face, and it kind of just drove me insane.
Welcome to the Backcountry Podcast. I'm Adam Howard. We're calling this episode The Two Cohens. Like most ski bums, legendary photographer Lee Cohen was planning on skiing at Alta, Utah for only one season. 40 years later, he's still there, shooting skiers in the Wasatch. Since his first image was published in the late 80s in powder, he continues to be one of the top shooters in the game, and one of his favorite subjects is his son Sam, himself a professional free skier. It hasn't always been easy for either of them. Sam admits he had to ski hard to get beyond the old man's shadow. While their vocation is different, the canvas on which they ply their craft is the same, and they're tight. If you didn't know any better, they sound more like brothers than father and son. Sam and Lee, welcome to the Backcountry Podcast.
Hey, Howie, how's it going?
Thanks for joining me. I understand the skiing's good in your neck of the woods, and I also understand that you might be going out to shoot together tomorrow. And
Yep.
I'd love to be a fly on the snowpack to hear you guys. And Lee, let's start with you. What's it like shooting with your son compared to any other athlete you've ever shot?
Nobody else has the nerve to give me as much shit, first and foremost. But it's also like he's also so dialed in because he's been working with me since he was a little kid. We do pretty darn well together. He's got the program dialed.
So he sets you straight.
No, he just mouths off.
Sam, how do you see it? I mean, because you've been out not just with your dad, but with other athletes and your dad. How does that go down?
Sometimes it's smoother than others. Sometimes it can be a little stressful. Sometimes I don't even go because I don't want any of the aggravation. Honestly, in the overall picture, kind of like what he said, it's, and you have this from working with anyone for years and years, but him being my dad and us working together for 15 years now, pretty much.
20.
You're in 20, let's say. You're in tune with each other, in tune with not that he's just my dad, but what the photographer is seeing, and when he has an image in his mind and you can read it and help him to, create what he's envisioning as best as you can, at least try your best.
Right. And you just got back from Tahoe where you were shooting with Grant Gunderson. And What is it like what's the difference with shooting with your dad versus Grant? And how much were you able to take from what you learned about being a ski model? Because it's not for everybody. You can be a great skier and not a great ski model. What did you learn from your old man that you were able to play out with Grant over the last week?
It's pretty funny because it's just funny you asked that. The shoot that I was doing with Grant this past week isn't the typical shooting that I do. It was more of a photo shoot instead of a film shoot. And so the skills I've learned with my old man really were put into application here the past week. Kind of throw a snowball, hit a left foot turn right there, or hit a left foot, then a right foot, or left foot, hit the little pop, kind of catch some air, land in a pinpoint spot. And, there's probably a lot of skiers who would disagree with this, but personally, I think that learning those pinpoint, what people call one-turn wonders over the years, in the end, really helped me in bigger terrain when you have to make a mandatory turn in an exact spot or you're going to, pay for it. What I've learned with my dad was really put into play this past week with Grant, and Grant was excited. He was, he thought we got some good stuff. So
had you shot with Grant before?
Yeah, actually, I've been shooting with Grant. The first time I shot with Grant, I think I was 18, maybe 19. I always wanted to go to Mount Baker, and that's his kind of home spot. He lives in Bellingham. And so I made the, 16-hour push, drove up there. Next day was opening day at Baker, Bluebird and Blower. And we had an awesome day. And, I've pretty much been going back every season since to work with him when he's around.
Let's throw it back a little bit. I want to get started, Lee, with you. And, we spoke a couple weeks ago and you kind of gave us your story about how you ended up at Alta and where you came from in New York. And I think one of the things that stuck with me is the time when you were really on the dirtbag fringe in Colorado. Take us through a little bit of your first winter there, how you ended up deciding you wanted to stay in the Rockies.
Okay. After my second year of college, I decided I wanted to take a year off and be a ski bum. I'd always wanted to. Growing up, I had some friends who were like more, their family had ski houses at Hunter and Stratton. I'd get to go with them sometimes. My dad taught me how to ski when I was 5 years old. He just wasn't like a super ripper, like
you are.
We didn't have a ski house. We never had a ski house. So, but he liked it. He loved it. He skied in the 40s at Mount Snow and Bromley. That's where he would take me when I was a little kid. Those were the air, and Bel Air, was the older school places. So I decided, all right, I'm doing a ski bum thing. One of my friends came back from Aspen showing a trail map in 6th grade. And it just stuck with me ever since. Bluebird powder in the morning, snowing every night. So I got a job in Yellowstone in the summer. I hitchhiked there from North Carolina. In the fall, we ended up in Denver. I was with a buddy my age and then another couple that was like 15 years older than us that we live with. And we went and asked a guy at the ski shop in Denver, an old Euro dude, where we should get a pass. And he said A-Basin and Keystone was a joint pass. They were both owned by Ralston Purina at the time. So we ended up at A-Basin and we camped out the whole winter for like 3 months. From Thanksgiving to mid-March, we were kind of skiing. And we road tripped a bunch of places. And I had heard of Alta, but I don't remember where I first heard of it. I heard about the powder dream, powder myth, whatever you want to call it, the Alta magic. I had another buddy came out from college and we went out and camped off Lot 1 at Snowbird for like 10 days in early January after going to see the Dead at Winterland in San Francisco, the last show ever at Winterland, which we didn't get into. But we saw it at the People's Temple of Jim Jones' mass suicide fame. And then after being at Alta and Snowbird for like 10 days, I was like, yeah, this is the place.
Where did you, so you camped that first year, where did you end up the second year?
The second year I went back to school.
Oh, you did?
I entered the lottery. Alta used to have their season passes handed out by drawing, right? You weren't allowed to call it a lottery because that's gambling. But it was a drawing. You had to like enter a drawing to get the privilege to buy a season pass. So after that first winter and after I went to Alta and got I remember that first trip there incredibly. Like my buddy wasn't that good of a skier, so we kind of were skiing on our own a bunch. And I just got a bunch of really great vivid memories, like hiking up to Gunside. I met some locals. It seemed like really far away at the time. It was just super dreamy, and going out the high T and skiing the trees towards the end of the high T and coming out in Jitterbug and Lone Pine, fairy dust hanging in the air. It was just super surreal, magical stuff that would just suck you in. So I came back in the summer and entered the drawing. You had to go in person, and I got a pass. And then I came out. I went home. I finished school, and then the day I graduated college, I came out. Been there ever since, really.
So when did you first pick up a camera? And why?
I don't even remember why, but I was shooting ski pictures of my friends, probably starting like around 1982. I was hanging with some buddies in Cal, right? Like I moved here for good in 81, but that 81, 82, I was here for good. But in the winter of 82, 83, we did a lot of road tripping. One of my friends and I, we got in on a house in Tahoe City for $300 each for the whole winter with a bunch of engineers from Oakland and San Francisco. And none of them ever came up. So we were there for a lot of time. And then we were also road tripping, taking like my childhood best bro on ski tour. I convinced him to come out and check out the ski bum life. And we took him to like 22 different ski areas that winter, everywhere. We were in Taos, we were in Jackson, we were in Sun Valley. We went to Mammoth, all the areas in Tahoe, everywhere in Utah. Yeah, we were just loving it. And so that I had a camera then and just started shooting a few pictures of my friends.
You started shooting in 1981, 82, somewhere in there. At what point did you decide, when did you sell your first photo? And how did that go down?
Well, you know what? I really started shooting seriously for the first time, like with more frequency instead of just on a lark, the winter of 83, 84. And that was when I was at Alta full time. It was the record-breaking winter of all time. There was another winter that got more snow since then by a few inches. But I just was shooting my friends, and I submitted some photos that year.
To where?
Like I think to Powder.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Powder was the shit.
Yeah.
They got rejected. I had a story I sent in there too. And I remember it got rejected, and I got a note back. I still got the note downstairs.
Is that from
I came across
Stebbins?
it the other day. I got a little letter from Neil Stebbins. He was running the show at the time. And it wasn't like the most incredibly flowery letter, but it wasn't, you know, he wasn't like telling me to like hang it up or anything either. So and the next year I got a shot. I got my first shot in like the next year. It was actually, it's just a door. I was driving on 50 in Nevada, and I saw this old mine door, a steel door blocking an old mine, and it said Powder on it. Like maybe it was where they had the explosives or something.
Right.
And it was just like carved into the rust. So I shot that, and that was the first picture I got in Powder magazine. And the second one I got was of Emily Coombs, who used to hang at Alta before she was with Doug, wiping out. And Powder put it in the back of the mag with like, you know, with like they put a definition of a word. And I mean, Emily she's burly, man. I was afraid she was gonna have to beat me down.
Was that like shot in the back? Was it in the shot?
Yeah, it was in the like the last page.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be standing there and looked up and saw her skiing down like Greeley Hill area. And all of a sudden she just kind of windmilled, and I just shot it like at the moment, you know?
Incredible.
That was the first action shot I got published.
So when were you able to make a living at it? Like from 80, it took you 10 years to get to a place where you were paying the bills with it.
You know, it was uphill steadily. I was getting some other cool jobs and stuff here and there. But I would say early 90s is when it was like, you know, kicking in for me more steadily.
Right.
95 was a really big year for me.
When did you get your first cover at Powder?
February 88. I was sitting in the Ruster dining room, and my friend Kyle came in and goes, "Nice cover on Powder." And I didn't even know. And he had it, and he showed it to me. I was like, yeah.
Amazing.
What?
It was sick.
At what point did you start shooting backcountry?
We were, like, Alta has always had an open gate policy. So we were shooting, like I shot pictures in the mid 1980s across the street, like corn skiing. Just we would boot up and hike up Flagstaff. I got a sick tie-dye shot of my buddy Simon. I saw it the other day. I was going through some old slides. And then I used to go out to Rocky Point, like early 90s, late 80s. I remember going with Gordy a bunch in the early 90s, and there would be nobody there all day. We'd go to Wolverine Cirque. We'd be the only people there. It was pretty cool.
Wow. I can't imagine, considering what we experience there now. So, Sam, what year were you born?
I was born in 92.
So right in the midst of your ascendancy into ski photography fame, you have this child. Did you ever think at the time that he would be a ski pro and you guys would be shooting together? Did that ever cross your mind, or was it pretty day-to-day ski bum life?
Day-to-day ski bum life. But, like, you know, I mean, I got pictures of him skiing with his mom as an infant that Alta used, like, between his mom's legs. And I got pictures of him when he was a little kid. Like, he was a Snowbird ad when he was, like, 9 years old or something. I was shooting pictures of him before I was really able to sell them because, you know, you're always going to be shooting your family.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I shoot him for Patagonia, like, when he was a little kid. Like, I think he got a kid's cover of Patagonia when he was probably like 12 or something, or 13, doing a backflip.
Yeah.
Back when that was pretty rad.
Yeah.
In the hoe.
Sam, tell me.
You know what Howie, you know what I wanted to say before when you were talking about shooting with me and other photographers. I've had so many other photographers thank me for Samo being so solid to shoot because I trained him.
It is a learned art, and having been on a lot of shoots and not wanting to be there, as the writer on a ski trip or something, and you're standing around and the photographer's trying to get the shot, and it's the snowball and the left footer and stop here. And I have so much respect for you guys and your cold hands and how you stand out there and do that. So Sam, I'd like to talk a little bit about your ski career. You obviously were you went to the Alta nursery, the Alta daycare, and grew up there. You know that mountain well. Tell me about the group you guys were part of. You'll have to explain to our listeners what the Alta free ski program is and how that kind of took you from there into competing.
Okay, yeah. It was Alta had this it was AYC is what it was. The Alta Youth Club. Mostly it was, children of, parents who worked on the ski hill. And naturally, right, they needed somewhere to kind of dump their kids and go live their lives, work their jobs, do, whatever. Through that, I made a lot of really good friends. And, a lot of them were, their parents were friends of, my pop and my mom.
And your mom worked a bunch of jobs up there while your dad was shooting. And
yeah,
I know,
so
I met her
my
at the
mom
A
worked
Lodge.
at the Alta Lodge.
Yeah.
She worked at the Alta Lodge she used to actually work on movies when I was a little kid. And we spent this one season living in Kauai. And we spent this short amount of time living in Kauai. I pretty much dropped out of kindergarten. We moved down there for a bit. My dad was still doing ski work throughout that season. I obviously was 5. I don't remember the timing exactly, but it was shortly after that my mom stopped doing that job and just was working at the Alta Lodge. I remember, I would go up with her. She would drop me at the Alta daycare or eventually at the Alta Youth Club. And she would go to work. And then at the end of the day, I would take the rope tow over and take the rope tow up the hill there and go into the Alta Lodge. And I became friends with a lot of the employees. I would hang out there quite often when I was a little kid. I was friends with this guy, Mikey. Mikey would always work at tea time, and that was my favorite time. There's cookies, So I would rush to tea time, eat cookies. Years later, we started what was called AFD, which was the Alta Freeride division. And that was, I was probably 14, I want to say. Oh, when was that? Yeah, probably, 2006, 2007. We started to just ski as a team and ski more freeride style. And that was when we had our first ever contests. And they were held on High Greeley. I don't know how much you've skied Alta, Howie, but High Greeley thirds, off of what my dad was saying, Gunsight is the far skiers right edge of it. That was where the first contests were. Ano was the head judge, which was sick.
Ano,
Ano
the
was
longtime mountain manager.
Yeah, exactly. Ano, the mountain manager, was the head judge. And there was a few other judges, our coaches. Sometimes they would have a guest pro skier be a judge. I remember, my dad was really close with Jamie Pierre. Naturally, I became not only was he, a hero of mine, but I was semi-close with him myself. And I remember he came and skied with our team one day and was chucking huge airs and hard pack. I can't even imagine what he was thinking, honestly. But, the Alta Freeride division was still just held in Alta. So it was pretty small. And eventually Snowbird started a program, the Snowbird Freeride team. And, a handful of us moved down there. Names that you would see, all the time in skiing now, like Johnny Collinson he was one of my teammates. I was actually skiing with Johnny today up at Alta. Leo Aarons, he doesn't really do the ski thing anymore, but most naturally talented skier I've ever seen by a mile. pretty much just all my really great friends at this point. And we were all on the Snowbird team, and we competed and we traveled. Unbelievable times. Truly some of the best times of my life. Just no worries at all, and just all fun. And, we were all pretty intense though. It was just naturally so competitive. And everyone was growing at such a rapid rate. They're skiing. And we were all so close too, as far as skiing, technical skill set, that we pushed each other. And it was such a big motivator to, ski your hardest. And naturally that transitioned into the Free Skiing World Tour.
Tell us about that transition and where you took it. For those of us that haven't followed the tour, and it's changed a lot over the years, but how far did you take that, and how long were you on the tour?
The tour, for me, it didn't last very long. My last year on the Junior Free Skiing World Tour, the JFT, I did fairly well. I had pretty much top 10 at most events. And then I ended up winning, what they were calling the championships out at Crystal Mountain. And I skied a run. I was in 11th place. I didn't really have a care in my mind. There was no thought of possibly winning. And at that time, people weren't really doing many tricks in their runs. This was 2010. And I skied this run. I'd skied it the year prior, but I decided to do 2 360s in it. And Jim Jack, legendary Jim Norm Jack, was the head judge. Eric Schmidt was, one of the other head, he was the secondary judge. I skied my run. I just went free skiing after. I had no care. I barely even made it to the award ceremony. I ended up winning that event. And then the next season, I went and competed in Revelstoke. So I was a senior in high school, but I had turned 18 in late November. So they wouldn't let me compete on the junior tour. And I was by far the youngest guy on the big boy tour. And man, I was petrified. So my really good friend, Jason Astle, and we hit the road. I'd never been to Canada. He had never been to Canada. We took my 96 Ford Ranger and we headed for Revelstoke. We had to both go through 3 days of competing. You had the qualifier, and then you made it into the day one, and then maybe you made it to the finals. In the qualifier, Jason stomped this air so hard, he shattered his humerus over his knee. And it was brutal for the guy. He's one of the greatest skiers I've ever seen. Now he's actually he's a Navy SEAL. But he flew home. I was there by myself. I made it through the qualifier. Day one, I skied a similar kind of thing to what I had skied in Crystal Mountain. I came down a little, nice fluid, not super technical. I did one big 360, took a knee to the face, I remember, and, skied out, made it to the next day with the heavies. It was, who was in that? I think in the heli with me, it was a heli final, and it was, it was like Lars Chickering Ayers, who dominated the tour for years, Griffin Post, my buddy North Parker, who was one of the younger guys there, but a remarkable skier. Drew Tabke was in the final there. It was, it was stacked, and I was just a kid, The venue was really steep, and the first ski cut they made, the whole thing slid. So we were pretty much just skiing this old bed surface. I'd watched a couple runs from the previous years there, and so I went into my run, shaking. I was just totally petrified. I did not ski it as well as I could have. I did a similar thing. I found a nice air, did a 360, and that was my run. And then, my whole goal was to try and win this award they gave out called the Young Gun Award. I remember they gave it to Tatum Minode, actually. So they gave Tatum Minode the Young Gun, and I remember I was standing there and I was kind of bummed. And I was standing there with Johnny Collinson, my good buddy, and he had crashed on day 2, and he wasn't, in that final day. And, long story short, I ended up winning the Sickbird belt buckle. It was because back then it was like you either wanted first or you wanted the Sickbird, and to be a kid and win that meant a lot. And there was one athlete there who was really, he befriended me. I kind of felt alone. Like I told you, my buddy went home, and this guy, Ryan Hawks, he was kind of looking out for me, it felt like. And he was being super cool, and he didn't feel like he was my competition. He just kind of felt like more of a mentor. You know, a couple events later, he ended up crashing and passing away, actually. And yeah, you know, that was my last contest. Kind of just, you know, transitioned out of that. I got a shot to film with Warren Miller later that season, and that was that.
Well, we know of Ryan Hawks well here in Vermont.
Yeah, legend.
Yeah.
Really good guy.
Yeah. So during these years, you're 18 at the time, how much had you been shooting with your dad? Or Lee, I should ask you, how much had you been shooting with your son?
Oh, you know, we'd shoot a bunch.
What were some of
I remember, I think the first shot I got of him in powder was when he was 16. And I wrote a little story about it. And it was called, I can't remember do you remember what it was called, Sam?
No, I don't remember the shot either.
I remember the shot. Oh, it was just something about me getting old and him, you know, like the next generation or something.
Right.
I could find it if I search my computer, maybe, but yeah. But you know, I used him for other catalog jobs that I got and other like spec jobs that I worked on along the way since he was a kid.
Right.
So, but that was the first time he was in powder, like a good shot. Like a half page with a morpheme, like they would let me write morphemes.
Right.
Like I'd write them on spec and submit them, and if they liked it, they'd use it.
Yeah.
So I'd get like a morpheme every year or something.
Sam, I'd like to ask you about being Lee Cohen's son and how that must have been a challenge, right? You must have heard from your friends, you know, here's your dad, he's a famous ski photographer. How did that stoke you? How did that challenge you?
Oh man, yeah, that was a little rough for me for sure. Yeah, I remember I got these goggles from John Atencio, and they were so sick, these Scott goggles, and all my friends all they could do was give me shit. The only reason I got them was because my dad was Lee. The first time someone ever said that, it just lit me up. I mean, it drove me crazy, honestly. Like truly, from like the depths of me, I just I hated it.
Did you know before you got lit up that you hated it?
No, I had no idea. Like I just was out skiing, and I liked going and shooting photos with my dad sometimes. Like I was a pretty dramatic kid. My dad always had the camera everywhere, whether it was at my baseball games or I'm hanging out in the front yard with my friends. There was always this camera in my face, you know, and it kind of just drove me insane. Like he was talking about that Patagonia photo, the cover of Patagonia, whatever, the kids catalog. I'd built this little jump way out in Westward Ho, and I'd been learning how to do backflips, and he just wanted to come shoot it, you know? And I was super excited about that. And from then on, yeah, people were just on my case about it, about how, and to this day, I still hear it, you know, and Lee Cohen's your dad, that's the only reason this, and, oh, sorry, my dad wasn't a photographer, I couldn't do this, that. Yeah, it was such a motivator for me to move away from that. And it took a long time, though. Like, Steve Lloyd was the first photographer I ever shot with other than my dad. And, you know, I couldn't ever figure out what it was that people didn't want to ask me to shoot, because I always felt like I had something to offer. And a lot of my friends were, you know, out shooting with Adam Clark or Markowitz or Barker, and no one ever asked me to go. And it kind of like, you know, it obviously didn't feel good. I remember Steve asked me to go shoot him. It was my friend Coulter Hinchcliffe and I. We went out to Dry Fork out behind Alta. Steve set up this shot. I went into it. It was this natural cliff, and I did some flip off it, and it ended up getting published. And that was kind of the turning for me. And then someone who really helped me, and saw that I had ability to ski lines was Will Wisman. And, I had said before, like, you throw a snowball and you got to hit that turn perfectly. Will Wisman, he had shot so many pictures of so many skiers throughout the years. Like, my dad was who inspired him to come to Alta. And so it was interesting, that kind of generational change from him looking at my dad's photos to him looking at his photos of me. The motivation there was, it was probably the biggest motivator in my ski career at that time, just to prove myself, yes, to others back then, but it became more of a battle that I had to prove it to myself, because of being a skier and everyone sees your identity as a skier, or that's all you are to them. That was something that always kind of drove me up the wall. You end up putting a lot of your self-worth through your identity, your athletics at that point.
How is it different now?
It's just, for me, it's perspective. It's a different perspective. It's none of that's necessarily changed, but I just don't see it in that light anymore. I see that it's not what you do, it's who you are. And that's something that I had to learn, and it took me a long time to learn, and I'm still learning it, But that was just a big one for me, like having the identity of a skier since you were just a little kid. And, I always knew that was what I wanted to do. And my dad was shooting my heroes, and I got to ski around with like Sage a lot when I was younger. And that was always so inspiring. It made me feel like it was such an attainable goal. I approached it in a different way as people do now, but it's interesting. Like, even just thinking about that, like Instagram, social media has made it an attainable goal for a lot of people now, which I used to really not, I didn't like it. I didn't like that you had to talk more than you had to ski. And that was what was going to make you professional or make a living doing it. I was always so excited about that your skiing would do the talking.
Right.
But my dad always told me, one day you're going to have to play the game. And that was before this whole Instagram game existed, So in a way, it's cool to see that change and think about the motivating factors for me as a kid. And they're not exactly the same for everyone, and it's a different industry now. But in the end, it's the same. It's a similar goal,
Lee, how does it sound? How does this strike you as you listen to this? And how is it to parent through this, one parent to another?
Well, kind of like everything that Sam says, I kind of witnessed first person. And, I lived it with him, really. Like the frustrations that he felt. It's super funny because I'll sometimes say, Sam is one of the best skiers I've ever worked with. And I try to hesitate to say it because it's my son, and people, the dude's just saying that guy's so full of shit or whatever. But I remember getting a call from Haynes at 2:00 in the morning, the first time Samo went up to 8K, and these guys were all in the bar in town raging. Your kid just fucking crushed so hard today. He sent the line, blah, 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 blah. They were just saying he ripped unbelievably. The light wasn't even good. And he just they couldn't even believe he went out there and did it. The snowboarders were even in awe. That's what they were saying. And it was Wisman, and then, I don't remember who else was up there with them on that trip. But it was really cool for me to hear that. And he had really good, he impressed people up in AK right away. And that was a humongous validation for me, for him, that all his hard work was paying off. And here are some people who were saying how good he was doing. And instead of being naysayers, he didn't go up there and flail. And then, they said, oh, geez, that guy shouldn't be here or something. Instead, it was wow, that guy just really sent it unbelievably.
Right.
So that was a huge affirmation that he's on the path that he wants to be on. When he was a little kid, I can remember he'd have ski school, AYC or Freeride on Saturdays. And sometimes I'd be like, it's Sunday, you want to go skiing? He'd go, I think I want to hang out and play with my downtown friends today. That was always cool with me. I would never like say, oh, dude, you need to go skiing. That would never, ever happen, not even once. Because I wanted him to love skiing. I didn't want there to be any kind of negative association with it, as much as I could help that.
Did it work, Sam? Here you are now living you're a pro. You just got back from a 5-6 day shoot in Tahoe. You were a ski model.
I was a ski model.
You were a ski model. You're doing the ski pro grind now, right? I don't want to call it a grind because it's a great lifestyle. But, you just got back from a ski shoot in Tahoe, and you do a lot of filming, and I think it's, from what I hear, that's kind of your sweet spot. Because you get to ski lines. You're not just skiing a turn, you're skiing lines, but you just came from Tahoe where you're skiing just a turn or two here and there.
Yeah.
How's that working
totally. Out? Better than I could have ever imagined.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't ever think I would make money skiing. I didn't really, I never thought about money. Like, I remember when I was 16 or so, I started making a little money from Faction. That was my first ski sponsor. And they put me on their global team at a pretty young age. Started progressing from there. I got sponsored by Cohens. I took all the money. I took all the sponsor money. I took my college fund. I took every bit of money I could get my hands on. And I went to Alaska. I spent it all. Paying off. I was lucky. It doesn't happen like that often. And it seems to happen like that even less now. And, the timing was right. But, like my dad had said before, sometimes when I was younger, it wasn't all about skiing. Like, I just wanted to hang out with my friend Andre and my friend Taryn. They were my best friends. They were my neighbors, and I just wanted to play baseball. I really loved baseball. And that was actually my dream when I was young, was to be a baseball player. But I was a tiny little dude, That dream faded away pretty quick, and skiing started to take control of my existence. I'm glad it did. There was things I missed out on, but also the experiences, like I mentioned, traveling with my ski team when I was in high school. Those were the best times, and we would all take high school off basically in the winters and just go skiing and travel. And people started to get contracts and started to get invited on, film shoots and projects. And I remember Johnny started to film with Sherpas, and Leo started to film with Solomon a lot. And, finally I had a chance when I got to go shoot with Warren Miller, and that was through Will Wisman. Actually, he got me on that shoot. It was because I was at that point I was working with Eddie Bauer, and they were really new. Their first Ascent line was brand new, and they were sponsoring Warren Miller, and I got a chance there. And that was when I really got to work with Will, actually, now that I think about it. And it was after that he started inviting me on trips, and I begged the dude to go to Alaska. I was just like, dude, I have to go. Like, I don't care if I ski 1 day or 3 days or no days. Like, I'm coming to Alaska this year. And I can't imagine what he was thinking, some 20-year-old kid just like telling him, I am coming to Alaska. But, I'm glad I hung it out there. And, my dad, supported me in every way he could. I can't even imagine having a kid who was such a lunatic like that, who just wanted to be out there risking it all the time. It's terrifying. Like, I truly can't imagine it. Hell, thank you. I'm glad you let me do that.
You're welcome. And your mom too, dude.
And my mom, I feel bad for her, man. So there was those days where, I just wanted to hang out and hang with Dre.
Howie, when Sam was growing up, like, I turned down so many ski jobs during the heart of my career because I wanted to be home and I wanted to go to his baseball games. And I used to take him and his buddies, like their dads all work regular 9-to-5 jobs. And I would take Sam and his buddies down to the ball field and we would have the time of our life. I pretty much would say, all right, I'm going to take one trip to Europe and one trip to Alaska this winter, and that is it. And then that was it. Like I was always wishing I could oh man, go up to Jackson or the Cascades or this or that. But I just would cut myself off because I wanted to be home as much as I could. And it was kind of like one of the super fringe benefits of having a weird kind of job, like doing ski stuff that is so fickle with the weather, especially somebody like me who shoots POW shots. It's a very weather dependent deal. It was just an incredible gratifying thing for myself to be able to go and hang out with Samo while he was growing up, and his friends. Like his friends came with, like his buddy Andre came with us on family trips, all the time doing stuff.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, from my seat, I look at Lee Cohen as the jet setter, the guy that's flying all around the world, and I see all your work everywhere, and including in backcountry, of course. But you're telling me that you weren't getting out as much. I mean, obviously you have a great zone that you shoot in all the time and you can get it when it's right. But it's interesting to hear you say that you cut yourself off so you could parent.
It was important. It was really important. And, I've thought about this a lot of times. For me, being a ski bum, when I became a ski bum, there wasn't all this jet setting. You moved to a ski area that you wanted to live in. And I chose to be living in Salt Lake and hanging out at Alta and Snowbird some. That was a decision based on, to me, in a business with no guarantees, as far as snow conditions, Alta's the closest thing. And that was like a huge root of my deal. I found that the odds for skiing good snow were highest if I stick around. Storm chasing, yeah, that's great. Like if you got a humongous budget or whatever. And now at the age I am now, I just want to stick around home more than ever. Like I'll get an occasional trip or something, but you don't get assignments in Europe anymore. That doesn't happen. The days of getting flown over first class and living the high life, that shit's history. Like there's photographers in Europe, the digital age, nobody FedExes packages of slides anymore, so they can reach out to so many more photographers looking for photos. They're not going to send somebody from here to go there and to go across the ocean anymore. Like you can maybe put together your own trip and hustle it up and figure out a way to do it. But I don't know. It's way different.
So it makes me think that my big mistake was living in Vermont, where you got to chase it. And I spent a lot of years being gone away from my family, and I'd be gone like 12 weeks a year typically until quite recently. And you do miss a lot, of course.
Well, the whole program is so different nowadays too. Like I like to look at it. It's kind of like the human body or a roadmap. You got the main pathways, you got the interstate highways, or you got the arteries in the body. And then you got the smaller blood vessels or smaller roads, the state roads, the county roads, or in the body, it's the capillaries. Like everything is just more filled in. It's all there. Everything that can be exploited is getting exploited by the people who think about it. And there's just not as much. There's still a lot of opportunity out there for people who are creative and stuff, but there's not as much stuff being discovered. Like so much is known. Like the 70s was an unbelievable time of growth and discovery for the ski industry, where all these like cool resort towns started blossoming. They might have started in the 60s, but it kind of started picking up some steam in the 70s. Like Jackson, I think they might have started in 1966. Vail was like the early 60s, maybe like 62. Aspen was around before that. Alta was around before that. But Telluride, Telluride, I drove into Telluride in the late 70s during that winter I was off, my first winter out west, and the place was a dive. Like the town was like, there were trailers and stuff in town. I couldn't believe it. And, that place jettisoned into like unbelievable rock star status in just a matter of a few years. What a beautiful town. Yeah, and all these places just like blossomed and exploded.
The growth in backcountry skiing has just been stratospheric for a decade at least. And now with the COVID, and of course you guys ski in the canyons, it's crazy.
Our stuff here that used to last for a long time gets tracked out in one day across the street from Alta. Superior looks like the backside of Alta with its lift service. Like so many people go up there. You could be dreaming about getting a sunrise on it. No way. These dudes are going to be up there dropping it before the sun comes up.
How many of your shots, how many of the places you go to get that automatic shot are no longer available because of that volume?
You know, just overall, everything's like gets tracked out quick. Like, you know, getting early ups is a humongous aid to getting shots. So like I'll start the day doing something like that, but then beyond that, you know, you just kind of playing hit or miss. Like I have one spot I go to that I know the sun hits it backlit like 1:30 in the afternoon, and anytime I'm heading there, I'm wondering if it's going to be thrashed before I get there. You know, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not.
Right.
And it's a great spot. And this year they put like it's 11 like blaster things. I forgot what they're called.
Gazex.
It's not Gazex. It's a different one. But they put them across the road because they're going to lose their artillery at some point. I don't know how quickly, but they have a bunch of these. Like I think there's 11 of them across the road now that they're starting to do it remotely, and they're kind of like these. You know, they're sort of eyesores if you're backcountry skiing and there's some freaking thing on a concrete pad, you know, that's going to blast the hill, whatever the physics are of it. I haven't really been ski touring this year much. This is the first year they're there because it's been super hazardous.
Sam, last time we talked, you were doing some Avi Level 2 Pro or whatever it's called now. You were taking some classes, doing some work.
Yeah, it's called the Pro 1 is what it is.
Pro
it's
1,
equivalent to an Avi 3 essentially.
Right. And what's your motivation behind doing that?
You know, a few things. Like I've kind of always thought I would transition into being a guide eventually. That just seems like a logical path, I guess. You know, I've had some pretty big injuries also that have made me reevaluate what I want to do. Do I want to hang it out there every day, filming, shooting? Like when I was younger, every zone I went to, I was always really hell bent on skiing the line, the jewel, the gnarly thing. I had to go huge and, you know, be the alpha or whatever. And this last injury, I had a ACL, MCL, and a meniscus, and it was a really bad crash. I was lucky that was all I got away with. I wouldn't say it slowed me down, and I'm feeling just as fired up as ever, but I just don't see. I mean, it's what everyone told me when I was 20. It's not sustainable, you know. And there's a few athletes ever, like there's like Mark Abma, there's Sage, you know, they went through their careers without having big injury. They were at the top of the game forever, like Jeremy Jones. You know, someone I worked with a lot who has inspired me a lot coming back from these injuries is Tanner Hall. I did a couple seasons working with him on a movie project of his. I met him in Haines, Alaska. He ended up skiing with my teammate Dane and I. I mean, the dude he's so dedicated. It's unbelievable. It helped me a lot coming back from injury and just spending a lot of time thinking about where am I going to go? Like I chose this career instead of going to college, and now I feel lost and this and that. And, you know, taking these courses and moving towards a bigger picture like that. But not only that, knowing that if I go to some remote location, say the Himalaya or Baffin Island, I can dig a snow pit and I can learn the weather history by going through the snow. Then I can make my choices and I can be safe. And, you know, the hit my dad was talking about that he goes to at 1 p.m, we were just talking about this earlier today. I despise this hit. It's everything that's unsafe about what we have going on right now in our snowpack. It's an amazing spot to ski and to get shots. But right now we were talking about just what are we going to do tomorrow, you know, and he brought that up, and, you know, I I ruled it out of my book instantly. You know, we could go look at it. You know, after taking that course, and you know, I've been digging around in the snow for a long time and ski touring, and I mostly backcountry ski for the past 5 years probably, and I have been in the backcountry for, you know, I took an Avi 1 when I was 15 years old, and now I'm 28. Tried to learn and apply all this knowledge, and you know, so far so good. Been pretty safe other than some traumatic crashes, but not avalanche related, knock on wood. I just think it's really good for every backcountry skier, athlete or not, to actually take classes and go apply these skills and go dig pits and really try and learn the snowpack. Like, we have 1.5 million people and change in this valley, and like you had said, due to COVID, we're seeing pretty much backcountry skiing is skyrocketing. You know, like, it's the biggest trend in skiing, and you can't think everyone's taking courses. Like, they don't even have enough courses for everyone to take. There's not enough room, and even with COVID, there's even less room. You know, just you know, trying to do my part and be good for me and good for the people I ski with, so that I trust myself to make that rescue, you know, if you have to. And I started thinking about that the past few years. Like, one of my really good buddies, Henry, and I were out ski touring on high hazard days, low hazard days. We ski big shit, we ski small shit. We just love skiing, and pretty much every day we're out. I think, oh man, is today the day that I'm going to have to dig Henry out, or he's going to have to dig me out? You know, I've had a lot of friends who've lost friends, and, you know, I've lost friends, and just actually making the effort to, you know, do your best it's just something that's important to me. If I can make some money guiding down the road, that's great. But for now, it's pretty much just trying to, you know, do my best.
Yeah, we got to keep educated, and it never stops, right? And you got to keep evolving, because we're in the ski industry and it changes. And
Totally.
It's really
cool.
What's
so funny, Howie?
Yeah.
Like, I think skiing now is not even the same sport that I began with. It's like, I mean, you're still two planks sliding on snow, but it's completely different. Like, the generation of skiers that, you know, every generation is pushing the limits a little bit further, but it's so completely different than what it was when I was a kid. It's unbelievable. You know, and there's so much of skiing that I'm not doing. I'm not going to be doing it at my age. I'm not going to be like ripping these like super psycho rad lines. Like, I was looking at some photos I have from like 20 years ago in Alaska that was pushing the limits back then. Nobis and Kent Kreitler just kicking ass. It was unbelievable. It's like nothing nowadays compared to what they do now.
But they're the ones who made it possible, though.
They opened the gate. They got it all started. But evolution, like, just the progression is incredible. What's happened with skiing. Especially, like, at one point it was really being challenged by snowboarding, and it was like, skiing's gonna die, snowboarding, it's so much more rad. And then all these like skier people rose to the occasion, and like, you know, they kind of like rode the back of snowboarding and started doing all these snowboarding tricks and evolved skiing like incredibly.
Yeah, no doubt a lot of the evolution in skis came from what we learned of snowboarding. I mean, those lines Kent and Jeremy were skiing wouldn't have been possible 5 years earlier on the skis of the time. Well, look, I want to thank you guys for taking me through your evolution and the evolution of the sport a little bit. Thanks for getting back with me. Appreciate it. Well, good luck out there. Be safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This episode was sponsored by our friends at 10 Barrel Brewing. 10 Barrel Brewing is all about drinking beer outside and crafting award-winning beers at their brewery in Bend, Oregon. In addition to their Bend pub locations, 10 Barrel also has brew pubs in Portland, Boise, Denver, and San Diego, all with self-contained breweries and a dedicated brew team to continue innovating and pushing the limits of craft beer. Did you know 10 Barrel also produces ready-to-drink cocktails? They've got a variety of margaritas and vodka sodas, plus a Bloody Mary, Moscow Mule, and Greyhound. And they're all canned and ready for your next adventure. For more details about all the beers and cocktails and location information for all the 10 Barrel pubs, visit 10barrel.com. The Backcountry podcast is produced by Backcountry Magazine, an imprint of Height of Land Publications in Jeffersonville, Vermont. Lucy Higgins is our editor-in-chief. Our intro music was composed by Alex Paul. Matt Richardson of Bear Pond Productions engineered this episode. Additional thanks to Tyler Cohen, Betsy Monero, Mike Lorenz, Robin Earl, Paul Davis, Justin Ryer, Michelle Peoples, Holly Howard, Karen Heward, and John Costello. At Backcountry Magazine, our small staff works hard to bring you stories that are thoughtfully edited, beautifully produced, and thoroughly fact-checked. Please consider supporting our independent journalism with a subscription to the magazine. You can subscribe or check out other swag at our website, backcountrymagazine.com. Use promo code PODCAST for 10% off your entire order. I'm Adam Howard. Until next time, I'll see you in the hills. Thanks for listening.